Put yourself in this scenario. You find a commander you really love and decide to build a deck around it. You go onto any of the commander resource sites like Archidekt, Moxfield, or EDHREC. You look through and you see a bunch of cool cards in any combination of this commander's colors, and a land base that shows an equal spread of each color. You copy the list near identically and can't win a single game with it against anyone in your playgroup. Your playgroup tries to help you out by telling you to fix your lands, but you're not entirely sure how to do that or what will work for your deck. Even when you think you have it, you might not still be able to cast your spells on curve. Don't worry. I'm here to tell you what it means to actually fix your colors. Let's start with the first thing most people think of when you think of color fixing. Your lands. The correct land count debate feels like it's never ending. CEDH players will tell you 29 lands is totally fine, no really. The math will tell you it's 42, I'm not kidding, look it up, but I've landed on a minimum of 36 lands. People are already about to come at me telling me I'm wrong, but you can't beat gameplay experience over statistics. I've played hundreds of games of Commander since I started playing the format back in the late 2000s. And 36 is the magic number where I always feel like I'm drawing enough lands to stay in the game, but not too many where I have nothing to do late game. This has been my experience with every deck I have ever played using this rule. Well, almost every one. There is one exception I'll make to this rule. The Commander deck builder sites everyone uses have a section of average mana value. First off, Moxfield gives you with and without lands. Never look at the with lands, that doesn't tell you anything. Second, if your average mana value without lands is over 4, you probably want to run more than 36. Maybe start at 38. So 36 is the magic number, but what actually goes into the land base? And here's the honest truth about it. You don't need to spend a ton of money anymore to make a solid land base for a commander deck. Not even a 5-color one. We have access to so many different types of dual lands that even if you're not running the best lands, you're still doing just fine. Whether or not you're on a budget, there's only one simple rule to follow. Don't use too many lands that come into play tapped, and if they do come into play tapped, they either better be conditional or very good. When you're building a multicolored deck, start with the easiest multicolored lands like Command Tower and Exotic Orchard. From there, I like to add Pain lands, Battle lands, Filter lands, Check lands, Bounce lands, and Scry lands. These cycles will already take up most of the land slots you have before basics, especially if you're running a 5-color deck. You could also use the Reveal lands if you're running 2 to 3 colors, and the Lairs if you're running 3. There's honestly not a ton of reason to run slower fetch lands like Terramorphic Expanse or the Panoramas anymore. Again, we just have so many better options now. Unless you're running a landfall deck, then you probably do want to run these things even if they're slow. If you can, avoid putting the cycles like the Thriving lands, the Vivid lands, the Gates, the lands that gain you 1 life when they enter. Why run anything like this when the Scry lands are 50 cents a pop? When you're not on a budget, obviously your mana gets better, but you don't need a big budget to make a land base that works. If you're looking to upgrade, I'd still start with the fetch lands and shock lands. These are still great inclusions in any commander deck, and they've been getting reprinted more often lately. So you could easily pick them up for cheaper when, say, Lorwyn Eclipse drops and we get shock lands again. It wasn't that long ago when most of the shocklands were sitting around $7 a pop. By the way, most of what I'm going to say moving forward is for decks with 2 or more colors. But if you're running a monocolor deck, try not to run too many colorless utility lands, especially if you're sticking with 36 lands. It's usually just better to run a basic than run something like a desert or whatever. Try to have at least 33 of your lands produce your color, and use the last 3 slots to get creative. Personally, I really like running Myriad Landscape in my monocolored decks, because if you've got nothing going on turn 3, once turn 4 hits, you get to start cooking. Oh, and MDFCs are really good, and you should probably want at least 1 or 2 in your decks. Count those as lands. Even if their effects aren't super efficient or anything, having the option to either play a land early or cast a spell late for only 1 slot in your deck is too good to pass up. Typically, the more colors you're running, the less basics you'll be running, but you never want to run 0 basics, even in a 5-color deck. This could be dependent on your playgroup group, but there's so many cards that target non-basic lands that it gets pretty risky if you don't run any basics. Also, stop sleeping on Fabled Passage. That land is incredible. But lands aren't the only thing we're going to be using to cast spells. You also want to make sure you're running enough mana sources overall, not just lands. This includes anything that can produce mana, like mana rocks or creatures like Birds of Paradise. Finding the right amount is a little trickier than land counts, but I found that I like to have at least 9 additional sources of mana, bringing the total to 45 mana sources. Again, if your curve is higher, especially if your commander is high costed, you probably want to run more than that. If you're running a 6+ mana value commander and want to cast it, you need to assume that your commander is 2 generic mana higher than what it says on the card. Because the reality is, you're casting your commander in the mid to late game, when players are going to have access to more mana. So theoretically, it could come down and immediately get hit with a removal spell. So that's how we get our colors. Now, how do we fix our colors? Say you have a 3-color deck with the right amount of lands in it. You draw your opening hand that has 3 lands and 4 spells. Sounds good, but you realize you can't cast most of your hand on curve. Most of the cards in your hand have multiple colored pips in it with almost no overlap. So you're stuck waiting to hopefully draw the lands that match the pips you need. Why would you want that stress if your hand is technically supposed to be totally fine? There's a couple ways we can fix this. The first method is to just reduce the amount of colored pips in the deck. Basically, finding cards that do what you need for your deck, but with less colored mana involved in their casting cost. The easiest example is using Big Score over Unexpected Windfall. These are functionally identical besides the casting cost. Unexpected Windfall can be way more annoying to cast in a multicolored deck just because of that extra red mana. But most of the time, these swaps don't work out as cleanly. Like, there's no equivalent to straight counterspell. But if you do need a counterspell, you're way better off running Arcane Denial if you're running multiple colors. Even though it isn't as good as regular counterspell unless you're running like Nekusar, at least you'll be able to reliably cast it instead of hoping you'll have the second blue mana. This type of streamlining is especially important in 4 or 5 color decks. Since you're trying to get access to so many colors at once, you may not have a way to get multiple of the same color for a few turns. Obviously, certain cards simply can't be swapped out like this. Underworld Dreams is notorious for a reason, but if you do this to most of the cards in your deck, it'll at least give you something to cast while you're waiting for the access to 3 black mana. Making your cards easier to cast can help significantly, but there's still more we can do. Let's take a look at your color spread. Moxfield and Archidect have percentage breakdowns of how much of one color a deck is, and how many lands you have that can produce the corresponding mana. Unfortunately, these tools don't take multicolor cards into account, but this number is still very valuable to be able to see it. If you keep your mana percentage higher, the odds of getting the mana you need before you need it increases, so you don't have to worry as much about getting the colors you need. When you're building a new deck, it's a good idea to input it into one of these deck builder sites right away, so you can keep track of in real time how your deck is going to perform based on these percentages. So if you need to tweak anything or whatever, you can visually see what you need to do in order to make it a little bit more playable. But believe it or not, there is still more that we can do in order to streamline our decks. Before I spill my secrets, if this has been helpful so far, or even if you think I'm a jabroni, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me who's at the helm of your favorite commander deck. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to it. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. This is especially good to learn for newer players. And unless you've been playing for 25 years like I have, you are a newer player. Check this out. Every single multicolored commander has a primary color among the colors that you need to cast them. Every single one of them. Even the 5-color ones. But what does that actually mean? Let's take a look at an easy example. Athreos, God of Passage, who I made a video about where I stuck magic creatures into Elden Ring. It's stupid, but it was fun, and no one watched it, so please go watch it. Anyway, this commander is Orzhov. So obviously you can run black, white, and colorless cards in the deck. But let's take a look at what Athreos actually does. Whenever a creature dies, unless an opponent pays 3 life, you return it to your hand instead of putting it into the graveyard. Now, what color primarily cares about creatures dying and going to the graveyard? black. This may have white in the casting cost, but you could totally print something like this in mono black and it wouldn't feel weird at all. Let's take a look at another example of a creature that has black in it. My favorite menace, Prosper Tomebound. He has black in his casting cost too, but look at his abilities. My man cares a lot about treasure tokens and playing things from exile. Black does not do that, but red definitely does. Let's go even further beyond and look at Nekusar. He may have color overlap with Prosper, but Nekusar wants everyone to draw cards so he can punish them for it. Drawing cards is a blue thing. Let's expand even more and take a look at Brea, Ethereum Shaper. 4 colors, more options. I'll give you a few seconds to look at it and decide for yourself. Did you say red? Because it's red. She wants you to make artifacts and cast artifacts, and red is extremely good at doing that. You could argue it was probably blue in a past life, but since treasure tokens have become primarily a red thing, you really want red in there. Okay, but what about 5 color? Well, if the commander itself costs all 5 colors and isn't one that just has a 5 color activation on it, the answer is always green. Why? Because not only are most 5 color commanders themed around creature types, and green gives you the most benefit for playing creatures, you need ramp spells to get your colors quickly. The only exception to this rule is like Ulalek, but that guy is weird as hell. And unless you're going fully colorless, you're gonna want the ramp anyway. The monocolor creatures with the 5 color activations are primarily their monocolor. It should be obvious, but I figured I'd mention it. Okay, but why does this matter, and how are we gonna build around this forbidden knowledge? Well, the goal here is to take your commander's primary color and build your early game around it. Make sure that over half your mana sources are capable of producing your primary color, and make sure a majority of your low cost spells are centered around that color as well. So if we take my 45 mana source rule from before, you want at least 23 sources for your primary color. Now, I'm not saying take a Jeskai commander and only run blue cards in your deck, even though that'd be kind of a flex, honestly. But think of the other 2 or 4 colors like splashes, like you would in a draft or standard deck. Yes, you can and should plan your mana base around casting all of your spells, duh, but your 2 splash colors take less of a priority early on. And by the mid to late game, you've played enough lands to basically always have all of your colors online, and you'll be able to cast anything in your deck without worry. And another benefit to this is mulligans. Building your commander decks around a primary color takes the guesswork out of your mulligans. When you draw your opening hand, is your early game in there? If not, you mulligan. It's that simple. Deck building and mulligans are some of the hardest concepts for new players to grasp, so you may as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone and do both at the same time. This method might sound a little min-maxy to some of you, and I get it. Commander is supposed to be the fun, casual format. Trust me, I love seeing a janky good stuff pile win, but taking this stuff into account will make your decks run buttery smooth way more often, and can even teach you some important lessons in deck building that are universal to all Magic formats. I hope this was helpful to you, and feel free to share it with anyone you think should give these methods a shot. I have been Foxherder, you have been wonderful, and I've got something spicy for the next one.